Well, well, well. Good afternoon to you. 306 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, the great Tammy Bruce is here at 3:30. Then at 4:30, we talk to Mike Van Meter, the Navy veteran, FBI veteran, police veteran, and now Republican candidate for Congress in Virginia's 11th district. We'll talk to him about the state of the race. Early voting in Virginia begins this Friday. Are you ready for it? More on that coming up. And Ned Ryan will be with us at 5 o'clock from American Majority. Such a smart guy. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Actually, you can join me at 8 o'clock on Friday morning. I'll be at the Fairfax County Government Center on Friday. It's the first day of early voting. 8 a.m. is the very first time you can do it. And we've decided we're just going to throw a party in the parking lot at the Fairfax County Government Center because I vote in Fairfax County. So I figured, why not make a party of it? And I just got all of the various – this is entirely a Vince Coglianese show production here because I went and talked to everybody at the station. They've given us everything we need, including we're going to be showing up with one of the WMAL station vehicles. So that way when you show up, they have a big parking lot there. And I don't know where we're going to find a parking space in particular. But once we find one, you'll find us because we'll have a big WMAL vehicle. And the plan, Corey, I think right now is for us to have coffee and donuts as well. We're not a part of any political campaign or anything like that. So I think we're allowed to, like a church group, share coffee and donuts with you as we hang out. So tailgate the vote, beginning with us on Friday, 8 a.m., Fairfax County Government Center. And if you're not a Fairfax County resident, you just want to come hang out with me, you're more than welcome to. But actually, what I'd prefer you do is vote in your county. That's what I'd like you to do. So 8 o'clock Friday morning, the festivities begin. And if you check out the Virginia Department of Elections website for you Virginia residents, you can find out where your various polling places are. The unusual thing about the early vote, just to be clear, is it's not at the same normal voting location usually that you might vote in on election day. There's just a couple of places in your county probably where you're able to do this, but if no matter where you are in the county, you can go to one of those locations during the designated times. Do that. Lock in that vote super early. Leave no mystery about whether or not someone else is going to get to it first. You get there first and bring every single person you can with you and get those votes cast. You can start doing it on Friday, and I can't wait to do it with you on Friday morning. Corey, you going to be there with me? Corey, let's see if we can hear Corey. Can you hear Corey, Jeff, over the air? You can? You think so? Okay, so Corey, did the audience hear Corey? I'm just making sure. Now they can? What are we even doing here? What kind of show are we operating? Okay, forget it. Forget I'll just tell people what Corey said. Corey's joining me on Friday, and then he's going to go vote in Arlington. Right after we're done Friday morning hanging out. Now, I'm not sure at what hour we will be done, so we might have so much fun that Corey will have to wait for another day. But he needs to. Corey's an Arlington guy, so he'll be voting in Arlington. The early vote on Friday. Join the fun. Now, meanwhile, I've got to share with you, to what extent has the left done any reflection, self-examination about its role in whipping people into such a frenzy that they try and assassinate Donald Trump? Has the left backed down from that at all? Any introspection at all? Have you noticed any of that? If any, it's practically non-existent as far as I can tell. I think Chris Cuomo is maybe the one guy he's on News Nation, and he's like, I can't even believe what's happening. He spoke to Donald Trump. Didn't he offer an apology of some kind to Trump? We have that, right? Yeah, I've got audio of Chris Cuomo. He says he had a phone call with President Trump in the past 24 hours or so. Here he is explaining that things are not good in this country right now. Take a listen.
How will we get anywhere better than where we are right now? Look, I'm not blaming Democrats. I'm really not. I blame the guy.
Well, you should blame Democrats for their excesses, for sure.
And whatever disease he has that the people around him either knew about and did nothing about. The guy was arrested 20 years ago for barricading himself in a room with all these weapons. Where are we caring about one another? Where are we taking care of our own? Where are we pushing to get help? We're leaving people languishing, dying on the streets.
Yeah.
What is going on with us? I don't get it. That's why I reached out to Trump. I wanted to just say, listen, I'm really sorry that this is going on and it's being dealt with this way. Not because I'm in favor of his politics or what he says. I criticize him all the time. That's my job, and he deserves it. But he doesn't deserve this. A guy pointing an AK-47 at him while he's playing golf?
Not an AK-47.
And we take solace in the fact that the guy didn't get any rounds off. That does not work for me. If I had been through what that guy's been through in the last 2 months, you would not know where I am. You would never see me on TV again.
True.
No way I would do that. I don't know how he does it. He's got kids, they're adults, but he's got grandkids. He's got a wife. People giving crap to Melania Trump, worrying about whether or not there was a plot around his husband. How could she not? I don't think she's right, but I totally get why she feels that way, and people mock her.
You don't think she's right about what? She's concerned. Melania has expressed concern that there's a lot more to this story than we know, and how come everyone's gone silent on it? And that's a reasonable question to ask. In fact, it's the one that any of us who care about the well-being of our country have been asking. Melania Trump, right at the front of the line, given that her husband was shot in the head on July 13th and has now survived yet another assassination attempt that just took place 2 days ago, September 15th.
And then her husband has a guy pointed with an AK-47? Where are those people apologizing?
It was an SKS rifle.
That's what it's time for. I should not have come at you, Melania Trump, for suggesting that maybe there was something more afoot. I get your paranoia.
By the way, you know who he's taking a shot at here? I believe that's Jim Acosta, who was on CNN, who was trying to make light of, what is Melania even talking about? Why is she talking about this? What is she even trying to say? Why is she releasing these videos now? So what you're hearing is actually Chris Cuomo take a shot, without mentioning his name, at Jim Acosta and all of the people like him on the media who have been trying to laugh off Melania Trump's concern for her husband's life.
I get your feelings. You have a right to that. There's nothing wrong with saying that, with being a basic, decent human being. It has gotten too out of control, too far from where we need to be and how we need to be. And I don't know what to do about it.
I don't know what to do about it, but I called Trump and I said, I am really sorry for the direction this has all gone. That's what Chris Cuomo said. All right, well, that's the beginning of something. That's the beginning of something. Now, am I expecting Chris Cuomo to arrive at the promised land to fully reckon with all of the people who have called Trump a threat to democracy, who have cast him as some sort of irredeemable existential threat to the country, some sort of demon? Well, no, I don't know how quickly he'll arrive at that, if at all. But it is the media continue it. The Democrats continue it. The half-life on the Trump assassination stories has disappeared. These things are over in a minute. Oh, my. Someone tried to take a shot at Trump. Oh, it's Trump's fault. That's the position that they're taking. Well, if he didn't create this environment, this is what they're doing. Here's a CBS last night, Norah O'Donnell.
Donald Trump is blaming Democrats for inflaming political rhetoric, but the former president's own words seem to be increasing the threat of political violence in Springfield, Ohio. That's where a false...
No, I just want you to know, that's the Monday night newscast. That's the Monday night newscast within 24 hours of yet another assassination attempt on Donald Trump. What other disaster, catastrophe, scandal ever looks or sounds like that, right? Usually in the wake of something awful, there's kind of the unspoken rule, like, we can get to the politics of all of this later. We can get to the big debates about all of this later. Right now, we need to focus on the breaking news. Something truly awful has happened. Let's process this. This is the CBS Evening Newscast, the very first one of the week. Donald Trump blaming Democrats for inflaming political rhetoric, but he's the one who's creating the conditions for political violence, is what CBS goes with. Meanwhile, NBC, Lester Holt, he said this on Sunday. This was just hours after President Trump was saved from an assassination attempt.
Today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio.
What a jerk. What a jerk. So that's NBC's attitude. There was no time to contemplate any of this. Let's immediately figure out how we can attack Trump for all of this. He created this environment. He created this. Over on CNN, Wolf Blitzer's upset that the Trump campaign is, quote, seizing on the assassination attempt. Seizing. They're exploiting the fact that Trump was almost shot dead.
And it's interesting, SC, as Amisha just said, the Trump campaign is seizing on this apparent assassination attempt as a way to rile up his base.
Seizing on it. I'm sorry, my job is to speak. I can barely do it. Seizing on it to rile up his base. I'm sorry. I think what happens is when any presidential candidate nearly has his life taken, when any president of the United States nearly has his life taken, the sober and rational response is to be riled up about that. Holy crap, what is happening, and how can we stop it from happening again? That is a normal person's response. And this is a bipartisan sentiment as far as I'm concerned. If somebody almost killed Joe Biden, I would be riled up about that. Holy crap, what is going on? How could that have been prevented? How can we stop something like that from ever happening in the future? That's the sober, rational response, not the one where you say, oh, man, I'm upset that Trump may be benefiting from this politically, that people are sympathetic that he has now survived yet another very public assassination attempt. And let me offer one qualified way to talk about this. A lot of us, and I think I include myself in this, have referred to this as the second attempted assassination of President Trump. The truth is, we actually have no idea how many of these have existed, how many of these, to the extent that they've been thwarted, have been thwarted. We have no idea. We don't. The government's not that forthcoming in almost any way. But we have no idea how many attempts there have been on President Trump. We know there are a lot of people who really would like to take him out. But this is the second public attempted assassination of President Trump. The White House is not toning anything down. Today, Karine Jean-Pierre, Karinge, expressed her contempt for Donald Trump, and she sounded an awful lot like Ryan Routhe, the would-be assassin, as she said yet again, just like Ryan Routhe said on social media, Trump is a threat to our democracy.
Just to clarify, so you're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this. President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy. He's been clear-eyed about that.
This is the first White House press conference since the assassination attempt on President Trump this weekend. And some of her very first remarks on the subject are that Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. That's the line the White House chose today. That's what they would want to go with. They're not even play acting at empathy or sympathy or concern. They're not. They've released a couple of bare-bones statements. Biden says the words. But the reality of his presidency has been one of dehumanizing, of demonizing, of casting his political opponent as an existential threat, creating the very permission structure that lunatics might use as a basis for why it would be an act of heroism to kill Donald Trump. That's what's been happening. And today, the White House breathed life into that yet again. As Karine Jean-Pierre says, Biden has been clear about the threat that the former president poses to our democracy. That's what she said. And I went and I pulled up the tweet from Ryan Routhe from his Twitter account, and this is what he said. He said a whole bunch of stuff, but he said that Biden should consider his campaign KADAF, as in Keep America Democratic and Free. He said that democracy is on the ballot and we cannot lose. This is the would-be shooter. This is the would-be assassin. We cannot afford to fail. The world is counting on us to show the way. He's repeating the talking points that the White House has given to him, that the Biden campaign has given to him. And it looks an awful lot like that formed the basis of his attempt to try and kill Donald Trump this very week. That's what's happening in the world. And you just have to be clear-eyed about it. It's 3. Hey, good afternoon to you. Now 3:35, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up 4:30, Mike Van Meter is with us. Navy veteran, FBI veteran, police veteran, and now Republican congressional candidate in Virginia's 11th congressional district. We'll chat with him about the campaign and about the latest assassination attempt on President Trump. Mike's got a lot to say on that. Ned Ryan will be here at 5 o'clock from American Majority. Very smart guy with a lot of clear-eyed perspectives, not sugar-coated, on the state of the election. Looking forward to talking to him. And we'll talk to you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.
And it's interesting, SC, as Amisha just said, the Trump campaign is seizing on this apparent assassination attempt as a way to rile up his base.
Well, that's just a small sampling of the media's reaction to yet another assassination attempt on President Trump. And they're now saying that he's exploiting it for his political benefit, or he deserved it. The Cincinnati Enquirer are suggesting this week that he brought it upon himself. For more on this subject, I want to bring in the great Tammy Bruce now. She's a columnist for AMAC.us and a Fox News contributor as well. Tammy, good afternoon to you.
Hi there. It's not like anything's happening, but thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'm glad you're here to talk about everything that's happening. Tammy, it used to be, I feel like, a couple years ago, that the media would at least feign concern for if a Republican presidential candidate were nearly killed in the process of campaigning. Now we're not even doing that, are we?
No, and we had about 2 days of that concern after Butler. Everyone really was appalled. Now, there's 2 different issues here, though. With Butler, we watched it happen, and we saw blood. So it was undeniable to people viewing. In this case, at the golf course, where he was clearly in similar danger, to say the least, we didn't see it. Now, there might be video from people on the site in the process. The president discussed it last night, President Trump, but he really is, by the way, the acting president. We can get to that if you ever want to. But he discussed the process. Also, his friend, a businessman who was with him, discussed what it was like. But after you've got the Butler situation and people were shocked, I think the most concerning thing, Vince, about this current, it's like you can tell it. Everybody's got the same talking point. Everyone is doing the same thing. No one is issuing an "oh my God" urgent statement that this is out of control. It really is about, as the Wolf Blitzer remark, but that's universal. It's that the message went out that what Trump asked for it. It's just short of saying that his skirt was too short, and that he was asking for the problems that he has. We're a nation that has gone through a process of dealing with crimes against women, and accusing the victim of wanting it, asking for it, provoking it, doing something that invited it. That's what the Ayatollahs do. It's what the mullahs do in Iran. It's cover your hair. Don't say this. Don't speak up. Get into the freaking potato sack because you are too provocative. And we can't, it's not like we can't control ourselves. We're perfectly fine, the mullahs say, and the Islamists say. It's you women who exist, and that's your problem. That is the messaging now from the Democratic Party about their political opponents. It's not just Trump. We can't reinforce this enough. When it's not just a slogan, when Trump says they want to come after you, I'm just in the way. That has never been more obvious. And I think that that's key. But the fact that they have decided, based on this universality of messaging, that they're okay with somebody getting shot because it's Trump, that is now what they're going to stick with. Harris and Biden put out some template thing of like, we don't like political violence. It's meaningless because, again, you got to look at what they're doing. And there's just nobody is. Harris could easily come up and say, look, Trump is not a threat to our way of life. We don't like what he's doing. The system is that we can beat him or that we can get the House and the Senate and stop him. But you don't have to kill anybody. But of course, they won't say that because this was the intended result. And now they're simply admitting it. And I would contend that is because they've seen and they understand what's at stake for them, which is a Trump who is now educated about the swamp, the nature of him saying that he's going to release the JFK and RFK files. And I think he should also release the Martin Luther King files. And clearly we need transparency on the 2 attempts against him. There is something, Vince, that is they're so desperate about, probably for over 100 years, that it's worth killing someone over. And I don't think they're going to stop. And that's another reason why we have to win, because they won't necessarily have to kill him if he loses, but he will go to jail. And he's an older man, and he'll die there.
They have all sorts of plans that they in mind for Trump. Should he live through the election, and if he prevails and he wins, we know that they still want to sentence him after Election Day. They'd still like to throw him in jail. They say that winning the presidential election should be no impediment to locking him up. That's their plan. The other is that they openly talk about their desire to stage an insurrection on January 6th of 2025 and to disqualify him as an elected president of the United States on the basis of a harebrained interpretation of the 14th Amendment precluding Donald Trump from being president. So Tammy, they've got plan after plan after plan on how to upend the will of the American people.
Yes, and, we see this all the time. It's like, Hillary and her Russia hoax that she started, with the payments and getting that going, when she knew that she had that problem. And it was the email server that everyone's kind of forgotten about right now, what that woman went to. And I think that we see still, it's so juvenile in a way, but you accuse your opposition of what you yourself are doing. Yes, it's Marxism, but it's so obvious now. And it's, and I think they're getting a little lost in the frenzy of what they're doing. But I also know that it's obvious what they're going to do after the election, especially if Trump wins. The good news is that he's not coming in like he did in 2017 as a neophyte. He's not being, tricked by the system with their suggestions and help. And he's not going to let a James Comey in with, I got to tell you about this report, Mr. President. It speaks to the Russians got something on you. They know that they've spent that currency. It's gone. And so, the Trump team, he's got a lot of people who are very, very good. Some people who are questionable, but most people are very, very good. And they understand. The America First entities understand as they work on policy, but also, Stephen Miller, the issue of legality issues, things that have to be done immediately to be prepared for, the resistance again. All of that stuff has to be handled aggressively because the country's at stake.
Yes.
And we know, and they stated openly what it is they're going to do. And it's when Trump comes in, they have to be, I think they will be, obviously, be prepared for that kind of thing.
And it'd be really helpful if Trump could win this thing in a landslide. If he can come in,
that's it. Yeah.
If he can come in with a crystal clear mandate from the American people, there are very few rocks that these people can hide behind.
Well, that's it. I have to say it's important. Look at what he accomplished when he was with just really 2 years last time because of all the distractions. But it really has to be, if the American people don't understand that if this is a close race, that is going to be taken by the left as permission to continue what they're doing. And if you genuinely want your lives to get better, this is the election, the chance to do it. And I don't think that's ever been more clear. Trump knows it. Trump knows what is ahead for him. He knows what's at stake. Melania finally coming out with a statement about the Mar-a-Lago raid. Barron now on X. The family understands that they're here for a reason, and that we must do it. But if we give again a split Senate versus a House, and then I don't know, it'll be like we'll be on life support, and then everything will be up in the air for 28.
So what do you, if I can just back up for a moment just to talk about Trump and his personality and what he wants. What do you make of his reaction to now two very public assassination attempts, one of which he was wounded in, the other that he was a single hole away from being killed? And I saw J.D. Vance, I guess, had said that Trump's first reaction was that he was upset that he wasn't able to finish his birdie putt that on the fifth hole. This guy is definitely is rich enough to not need any of this. In fact, he's done it certainly at the expense of his own wealth. And he's still staying in this thing as now the very real threat to his life continues to manifest and show up. What does this say about Trump to you, Tammy Bruce?
He's clearly the antithesis of what we have seen up to this point. Even when Reagan ran, they hated him too, but it was not like this. There was none of that dynamic. And this is really the first time where it is someone who is really the antithesis. Interestingly, enough part of the system to where he knows all these people because of his work, but initially in business and in real estate in New York and around the world, enough experience to where he knows everyone, but still also an outsider. And it's almost a traitor to his class, and that is his other crime, of course. And those are the kinds of individuals like Teddy Roosevelt, where you've got people who recognize their own class as being part of the problem. And inside and outside, one foot in, one foot out, his fatalistic attitude, I think, could only also have happened after facing what he faced in 16 to 20. The support of the American people, I think, continues to shape him. And I think that's what gives him particular courage, is like, wow, I really am the only guy who can do it. And it's true. And he's got enough of an ego to maybe get to that point on his own, but he doesn't have to. So when you have, the American people, tens of millions of people, the people outside, at the rally in Butler, waiting for you at the risk of their own lives, waiting to see if you were okay, that has to affect people. It affects me, and I wasn't even there. And so I think that this is his nature. He's a decent, funny guy, yes, who cares about his family and cares about the country. So, it's his nature bolstered by his experience. And
it seems like to me, in terms of in my life, the kinds of people that I've met with outsized egos tend to be really using that as a way to shield their insecurities. And it's an act of self-preservation. The last thing they want to be doing is staring down the barrel of a gun. They'd be cowering in a corner crying at that. That wasn't Trump. Trump was shot in the head at Butler. He rose to his feet while there was still a threat and tried to rally the crowd. I mean, it is everything about he's a very unusual person. He's a very unusual person. But it strikes me that he means it when he says that he thinks that he's the right guy for this job, specifically for the country.
Yes, and I think that he has intellectually come to that point. Clearly, his wife and his family, his children, support him. He has not lost them. There is a bolstering of family. The only other person similar, but in some certain ways, of course, very different, is Elon Musk. It's interesting that we get the right people at the right time. And we talk about divine intervention when it comes to attempted murder against the man, but this nation has had more than luck. My God, the founders together, Washington, are you kidding me? Washington, who also, the Indians felt that he was protected by the gods because they would watch him being shot at and never hit, and they didn't understand how or why. we don't necessarily understand this, but I think that there is the nature of the experience itself for America is very much like Pope John Paul II, Reagan, and Thatcher. How do you get them at the time when you need them? And we have that now, but the ultimate, Vince, and this of course is, God laughing, is that we are the ones who are the key in whether or not it will work. So the presentation of the table is in front of us. And now it is what, the founders, what was it Franklin who said, we've given you a republic if you can keep it.
Right.
And the Constitution and the Bill of Rights anticipated exactly this moment. You got Hillary talking about wanting to put people in jail for misinformation. Well, the founders knew that people weren't going to change that much, no matter how long the country existed. So we have the safety net, but it comes down to us. And I believe in us, and I hope that the cheating is not so severe that we can make this work. And as you've noted, keep the House, expand the control of the Senate, and have at least 2 years of a country that Trump can work with.
Right. And by the way to stop their insurrection on January 6th is for Republicans to have a sizable control of both the House and the Senate. That's the way to stop that. And so everybody needs to work together to achieve that outcome.
Correct. That's it. I mean, it's just they have to understand this is not just going to be like, they can't just it's not about winning the news cycle.
Yeah.
This is different.
It's amazing what's happening. Tammy Bruce, you're amazing. Thank you as always.
Okay.
Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you.
Love it.
How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
We'll get to the answer to that question. Peter Doocy just confronting the White House. Karinge Jean-Pierre, why do you keep saying threat to democracy? How many assassination attempts do we need before you change your awful, awful language? More on that coming up. Mike Van Meter will be with us in the next hour. Ned Ryan still ahead. And you, all ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.